I think it was June. Laying back, head on the grass, chewing gum, having some laughs. Yeah, having some laughs. You made me feel like the one, made me feel like the one, the one. You made me feel like the one, made me feel like the one, the one. Drinking back, drinking for two, drinking with you, when drinking was new. Sleeping in the back of my car, we never went far, didn't need to go far. You made me feel like the one, made me feel like the one, the one. You made me feel like the one, made me feel like the one, the one. I don't know where we are going now. I don't know where we are going now. Wake up, cold coffee and juice, remembering you, what happened to you. I wonder if we'll meet again, talk about life since then, talk about what.
Okay, good evening, everybody. And welcome to the Live Loft Lounge. This week, our theme is going to be inspiration, and we have a couple of really good life stories. There's just a few of us at the moment, and I do hope the other person that's doing the life story will suddenly come back on. So I will hand over to Alan, who is going to be our host for this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Saturday Night Love. So we've got Paul Walker doing his life story. We've got Kim doing what's going on in the community, and obviously the other person is here at the minute. So would you like to introduce yourself, people? Go to Paul first.
Hi, I'm Paul. Pleased to meet everybody.
I'm Kim. I work with Red Rose, and I'll be talking about what's going on in the community this evening.
And I'm Barbara, and I work for Red Rose, and I work on the mine contract, and I'm here this evening to do the comments. So any questions, please send them in.
And like and share this love, please. Get more people watching to get this word out there as well. And I'm Alan, a volunteer for Red Rose Recovery, and I'm the host for tonight. So to start off with, we've got Paul's amazing life story coming up next. Whenever you're ready, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Alan. I'm Paul. For a lot of years, I had problems with drugs and alcohol. I grew up. I was born in the early 70s in Blackburn. So, you know, and a lot of my youth was spent playing in abandoned warehouses and, you know, parks and hanging outside of shops and stuff, you know, the usual stuff that people did back then. You know, there was no real trauma in my growing up. You know, there was a few things, but nothing really, you know, nothing really horrific or anything. You know, I had a pretty normal upbringing. But one thing one thing, I did feel like I was possibly adopted, or I never quite felt like I fit in, even around my family. You know, my family, I come from a very loving family. I come from a very nurturing family. You know, we were very close, but still, I didn't quite feel like I was part of that family. And as a young lad, I remember even, you know, looking through the drawers and the cupboards and at home, looking for some, you know, some form of proof that I wasn't part of this family. Because like I say, I just felt like I shouldn't be here, you know. And fast forward a few years, I had a stepdad, and he used to like make his own alcohol, you know. And I can remember, you know, I used to have a few sisters, and I used to look after them at night. And one particular night, I had a few friends round, and we tucked into my stepdad's alcohol. You know, it was something like elderberry wine or something like that. I don't, nettle wine or something. I don't know. He used to make wine out of all kinds of stuff. And when I had that drink, then feelings all went away. You know, I felt like suddenly I felt like, you know, I belonged. You know, I even felt distant from my friends. You know, at school, I didn't feel like I quite fit in. But when I was drinking at a young age, it kind of gave me the ability to be one of the lads, to have a laugh with my mates, talk to girls, you know, and go places that I would not normally go, because I always felt, I don't know, I always felt like I was not meant to be there. You know, but drink stopped all that for me and allowed me to go to those places and be with those people and fit in. You know, but after, you know, like I say, I grew up, you know, playing on parks and hanging around shops, and, you know, because there wasn't much to do in 70s and 80s, you know, as a kid. And that's what we did. We hung around shops, we hung around parks, drinking, and you know, one day somebody introduced cannabis, you know, and I had a go at it, and I again, you know, I felt like this is great. This is what I want to do. You know, I actively, you know, I started to drink and use cannabis, and, you know, I was curious. I was curious about all these other drugs that people were talking about, the older lads were talking about. I was curious. I wanted to know what they did. I wanted to know why these older lads were doing it. You know, it was attractive to me. I wanted to be one of the lads. I wanted to fit in when we went to football. You know, I wanted to fit in at school, or when we went to school discos or discos at the community centre. You know, I wanted to be centre of attention. And without some kind of substance, I didn't feel like I was centre of attention. I felt like I was on the outskirts, you know, and that's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be right in the middle, you know. And then, you know, I mentioned the abandoned warehouses. You know, at the end of the 80s, those warehouses, a lot of them was used to hold illegal parties, illegal raves, and I got involved with that. And again, I thought, wow, this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I actually remembered saying to one of my friends, I ain't ever stopping doing this, you know. But, you know, fast forward a couple more years, and, you know, and they were illegal, and the police were stopping them happening, and I just wasn't able to go to them anymore. So what now? You know, and all of a sudden there was like the town that I grew up in was flooded with stronger, harder drugs, you know. And again, I was curious, you know. I wanted to know what all the fuss was about, you know. And I can remember seeking that stuff out, going to a friend who I knew was using harder drugs, and asking him to like introduced me. If only I knew now, if only I knew then what I know now, because that was, you know, the start of a slow declining ruin of my life. You know, I like I say, I had a loving family, I had a nurturing family, and they didn't understand me. They didn't understand why I did what I did. I always felt like there was part of me that was missing. You know, I felt like there was just something not there inside me that other people seem to have. You know, I would go out on a Friday night and I wouldn't come home while Monday morning, Tuesday morning, maybe even Wednesday, and then start again on Friday. You know, but my friends, they would stop. We'd go out on a Friday night and they'd go home at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And that used to puzzle me. I used to think, what's, you know, we're having fun. Why are you going home? You know, I wanted to carry on and carry on and carry on. I just wanted to, I don't know. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? And today, you know, now I've had some time without the use of drink and drugs, and I've done some work on myself. I've got hindsight around that stuff, you know, and I know now that it's not a moral deficiency. Yeah, it's an illness, you know, and I believe that at some point in my early using, I crossed the line, you know, and when I crossed that line, I wasn't able to stop. I just could not stop, you know, and for years and years, I got married, I had children who I loved very dearly, but each time one of my children was born, I would say, now that's it, I'm going to stop now. These children are my life. I'm going to stop for these children. It never happened. I just wanted to carry on, but I didn't want to carry on. It was like a conflict inside me. I wanted to carry on because I enjoy taking drugs and drinking. I enjoy that stuff, but at the same time, I had a lot of consequences to it, and I wanted to carry on without the consequences. But that unfortunately, that's not what happens. You know, because as a person who has crossed that line, you know, a lot of dishonesty started to occur. You know, I was lying, I was stealing, I was manipulating family members. See, I always targeted my family members because they were the easiest target. You know, they were the easiest people I could find who I could manipulate and get money off to buy more drugs and drink more. You know, and I made a real mess of my live. I've got some amazing members in my family, you know, some of them aren't here anymore. But I have some amazing family members. My children are beautiful girls. I've got 4 beautiful girls, but there wasn't enough to stop me from doing what I was doing, you know, and them days of having fun, they'd gone. They'd gone, and yet I still couldn't do anything about it, even though, you know, I ended up leaving my wife. Well, she kicked me out, to be honest, you know, which was hard, because it wasn't just her that I left, it was my children and my home and everything that goes with it. You know, my family didn't want anything to do with me anymore. It enabled me for years and years and years, and they just weren't prepared to do it anymore. And I got to a place where I wanted to die, but I didn't want to kill myself. I didn't have the balls to actually kill myself. But, you know, unbeknownst to me at the time, I was slowly killing myself. I was slowly committing suicide. And I were okay with that. I didn't see a point to life. I believe that recovery is all about perception. And my perception to life was, it's shit. I don't want to, I don't want to be here. Life's shit and there's nothing good in life. you know, and that was my attitude. So for me, everything's attitude and perception, and you know, that's changed now. My attitude toward things, my perceptions have changed, you know, but it's taken a lot. It's taken a few years of some hard, vigorous work on myself, you know. So after leaving my wife, my drug use got really, really bad. It took a real nosedive, you know. And in the end, I can remember sitting on the end of my bed. I had no friends left. They'd either died, or they'd gone to jail, or they'd gone into recovery, you know. And I was just sat on the end of my bed, and I was crying, because I didn't know what to do. I'm a diabetic, me, and for a week I hadn't eaten. I hadn't had any insulin. I hadn't eaten. Even if I was drinking water, it was coming back up. I do truly believe I was about to die. And I can remember sitting at the end of my bed, looking up in the air at my ceiling and saying, please either help me or just end me. Yeah. And it's funny how things happen, because an hour later, a friend who had got clean, who was in recovery, he rang me, you know, and I hadn't spoken to him for years. And he asked me how I was, and I told him, and he said, okay, I'll come and get you. And he took me to a meeting, you know, and I went to a meeting, and I met another old friend there who was in a position to get me into a treatment centre, you know, and I went into that treatment centre, and it was hard at first, you know. I had a lot of things to look at. First of all, I had to like admit that I had a problem, you know, and that wasn't hard. I knew I had a problem from being in my early 20s. I knew I had a problem. That was a no-brainer, you know. But I had to look at lots of other things: my conduct, what I suffer with, basically, you know, the low self-esteem, the low self-confidence, the general just dislike of myself and my surroundings. And I looked at all that stuff, and, you know, and I actually changed my perception, you know, through going and doing some work on myself. I changed the perception of life around me, you know. And today, I love life. Life's great, you know. No, it's not been easy, you know. I still suffer. I still suffer with the same thoughts that I had growing up. It's just now I have a way to deal with that stuff, you know. I believe that when I was broken, sat on that bed, I'd lost my mental health. I'd lost my physical health. That was definitely gone. My emotional health, I was sat at the end of my bed crying, for God's sake. And my spiritual health, you know. And I believe I'd lost all four of those things. But going into that treatment centre and then going to meetings and doing some work on myself, and now I am now firing on all four of those things. You know, I help other people. You know, I work in services. You know, I work for Inspire. I also work at the treatment centre that I went through. You know, in my spare time, I help people. You know, what going through that treatment centre taught me is to live by some spiritual principles, you know, and that's very simple. It's just be kind, love other people, have some integrity, you know, be empathetic and sympathetic, and you know, not, I don't know. See, my perception before was everybody's a dick, everybody's shit, life's shit. What's the point to all this? Now I know what the point is. The point to my life now is to help others, you know, and the feelings that I get from that are far better than any drug that I've ever took. You know, I've took every drug under the sun, apart from spice, and you know, I look at those people. You know, I'm at work and I look at those people that are on spice, and I think, why would you? But you know what? Back in the day, I'd have done that because it gives you oblivion, and I think that's what I was looking for. I was looking to just be out of it, you know. Just the general malady of life was really difficult for me. But today, you know, it comes easy, and it's because I practice a few easy principles. You know, be kind, be loving, you know, have some integrity. Integrity is really important. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. You know, if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'll be there. You know, unless something really important comes up and I can't. You know, I think that's really important, because that tells other people what kind of person I am. You know, which is far away from what the person I was, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. You know, sat on the end of my bed crying. You know, and the best thing for me, I'll end on this. The best thing for me about being in recovery is you never know who's going to walk into your life. Some really, really beautiful people have walked into my life and made my life better, right? And the other thing is you never know the opportunities that life's going to bring. You know, that it's giving me goosebumps now. You know, I don't know what's coming. Yeah. But instead of being pessimistic about it, and, you know, it's probably not going to be any good anyway, you know, that self-doubt that we have all the time, that, you know, the negative thoughts that we tell ourselves all the time, you know, that wouldn't happen for me. Just my luck, you know, them kind of things. I don't have that today. I have excitement for the future, you know. I'm quite looking forward to the future, you know, with no fear. And I used to have fear all the time. You know, back in addiction, everything was fear. I was full of self-centered fear, constantly afraid all the time. So yeah, thanks for letting me do this. Thanks for asking me to do this, Kim. You know, this is one of them things, isn't it? This is one of them things, you know. I didn't know I was going to be doing this last week, you know. And look at me, here I am, sat on a Zoom meeting, telling you guys it's good to be clean. It's good to be in recovery, you know.
Do you know what, Paul? You're an inspiration as well, mate. I've just been listening to your life story, and that it's proper picked me up so that I keep pushing forward and just keep going, like, you know what I mean? And obviously, I think you've just touched a lot of people as well, that with your story.
Listen, right, life's still gonna trip you up, right? But life trips you up when you're in them days when you have drugs as a solution, you know. Because life tripped me up back in the day. I'd just go and score it. I'd just go and get pissed, whatever. Yeah. But today, when life trips me up, do you know what I do? I speak to a friend. You know, I ring somebody, or I go and meet somebody, and we'll have a coffee and we'll talk about it. Do you know what I mean? That's like, who'd have thought that it was that easy? Do you know what I mean? Who'd have thought recovery was that easy? Just talk to somebody about your problems and they'll go away. We'll find a solution together. You know, and that's what life's about. Together. You know, we're in this together. And that's what I love about my life today. I've got so many people who I can turn to, you know, but on the other hand, they can turn to me too. You know, so again, thanks for asking me, Kim.
I just want to say to Paul, obviously, I've seen you through your addiction quite a lot. So I just want to say how proud I am of you. And thank you for coming on. And I'll come round for a brew again soon for a catch up.
Look forward
to
it.
We'll go to Barbara now to see if there's any comments for you, Paul.
Okay.
You're on mute, Barbara.
I'll have that on my headstone. You're on mute. That's unusual anyway. Kath has said, you must be so proud of yourself, Paul, and I totally agree with that. And Pete Yarwood says, nice one, Paul, and thank you for doing that. Can I just say, Paul, I totally resonate with you about us being hard on ourselves. We're very quick to knock ourselves down. We're very quick to blame ourselves, and we're very quick to cause ourselves pain. And the thing is that when we do something good, it takes us a long time to start praising ourselves and pushing ourselves on. Your goal is to carry on with what you're doing and get there, and that is absolutely fantastic. That is the big inspirational thing.
Thank you.
And it shows that it can be done. And that, you know, it doesn't take a superhuman to do it. It just takes somebody with goals and somebody with something that gives them that urge to push forward. So don't knock yourself about what you've done. This is what I always say. If somebody stood and did to me what I do to myself, I'd have murder with them. Yeah. We are so hard on ourselves. Praising yourself is brilliant. Yes, Kim?
If you just look, I think Peter Yorwood's put a quick question for Paul. Can you see it?
Yeah. What would you say to those people who are struggling to navigate the system when they are in a really shitty place?
Reach out, find somewhere where you can go. See, I'm a big advocate of Narcotics Anonymous. For me, that's the answer, and everything that comes with Narcotics Anonymous, right? So with that, there is the 12 steps, but more than that, there's the connection that you have in a meeting. So for me, the opposite to addiction is connection. The value of other addicts helping each other. I'll go to a meeting and I'll know most of the room, and it's just that it's a fellowship, isn't it? It's like we're all in it together. We're all here with a common goal, and we've all been through some stuff, and there isn't one person in, anybody that comes to me with a problem, if I can't answer it, then I know somebody who can. So that for me is get yourself around some form of fellowship, whatever that might be for you,
Yeah. Stuart has just said he was wondering if there was or is there anything specific to change Paul's perception and mindset for the better? Or are you like him, simply keeping up the hard, positive mental work and talking about being honest when things get tough? Right.
So what I have to be is, and this is, I have to be honest. I have to be open-minded to listen to people, and I have to be willing to put what they tell me into some form of action. And I have to get up and show up. Listen, no one's going to come and rescue you. You have to get up and like do something about it, and then you find that when you do fall, people will rescue you, that's what I'd say. Find some integrity.
Yeah. The point is putting your hands out and asking for help is huge. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, but it can be hard to do. It can be hard to do, to ask for help. It's a really, really difficult thing to do, because we all have egos, don't we? And we think we can do it ourselves. But when you cross that line, and I spoke about it, there comes a time when you can't help yourself. But it's admitting that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, back to you, Alan.
So all I'd like to say is to like and share this page again. And before we move on to Kim, I have been asked by Red Rose Recovery Football Club's football manager to thank Elysium FC for coming down, a great bunch of lads coming to play us today, where they did lose 3-2, which is a shame. But obviously Red Rose brought the cup home today. And I'd just like to thank them very much for coming down and actually giving us the privilege of playing them again. So we'll move on to Kim and what's going on in the community.
Just before I start, I know that Paul is wanting to go. If he wants to stay for this or if you want to leave now, it's up to you, Paul. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you very much, Paul.
I'm actually going to leave because I'm I'm at a party.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, but thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Paul.
See you
All right, and I'll see you all soon. See you later. You all
Bye.
take care.
Thank you,
You
mate.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
God bless, Paul.
And you, mate.
Right, so what we've got coming up in, well, what's happening in the community. So this Thursday we started a new group. It's a mixed group. It's at Preston Bus Station Cafe, which is every Thursday, 10 till 12, which is called Brew and Banter. Today there was another new group that started again at the Preston Bus Station Cafe, which is called Community Catch Up. Which is run by our lovely Ellen that's on here and another volunteer with Red Rose. That is on 2 till 4, which is every Saturday and is a mixed group. Just quickly, how did that go, Alan, while we're here?
It went all right.
Good, okay.
Yeah, it was a good little bit. Although I'm not going to lie, I was late.
Well, you had football before, so I think that's all right.
But obviously the other volunteer was there on time, like open.
Well, that's not a surprise, is it, that you're late and he was there on time?
Yeah, so obviously that with the football match, I helped to put the goals away, the nets away.
Right,
So,
okay.
and then we all went down. A few of the football lads turned up. There was obviously one of Barbara's friends turned up. There was someone else that turned up that wants to get involved with us.
That's good.
So yeah, it was good.
Good. Again, at the Preston Bus Station Cafe, we have one on a Tuesday starting this Tuesday coming, which we're still in debates on the name at the minute, but that's a women's group, and that'll be 10 till 12 again. And we have your football matches, and if I've got this right, the two that are coming up is on the 2nd and the 3rd of October.
Yeah.
Yeah, one at home and one's away. Is that right?
So on the 2nd, we haven't got a venue for it yet.
Right. Okay.
That's to be decided, but that's going to be an early kickoff, so
Right,
that's in the morning. And on the 3rd, we are at home at South Meadow Lane, Preston Sports Club, and I think that's a 11:30, 12 o'clock kickoff thing.
Okay, great. Just going to speak about our lovely Barbara's, which is in Skelmersdale. Connect and Craft, is it called?
Yes.
Is that right? Got that
Yeah.
right? And that's on a Thursday, 10 till 2.
Yeah.
We also wanted to push our Friday fun. This is not in the community, it's on Zoom. We have a £5 prize for a bingo if anybody wants to join us, and that's on Friday nights, 7 till 9 p.m. We have coming up in the community on the 9th of October, which I think is a Saturday, is our mental health day, which is at the Flag Market in the bus station in Preston. And I got asked to mention the coffee shop recovery, which is in the motions at the moment, which will be on a Sunday, which will be at the Lauder in Preston. So we haven't got obviously a date or a proper time yet, but the wheels are in the motion for that. And yeah, I think is that everything that I was meant to mention in the community, I think.
Obviously, the football team's open to people in recovery with mental health. So football training is 4 o'clock until 6 every Thursday night. Obviously, where we played today, which is Preston Sports Club, South Meadow Lane. Anyone's welcome. It's not, we aren't really forcing on who we have. We welcome anyone, it's like a family. And it'd be good to see some new faces to turn up and get engaged with us.
Sorry, there is a Slice of Advice on Fridays, which is at
the Grange Community
Gardens
in Ribbleton, just off Fair Tree
Avenue. Yes. So you come along, you help with the bit of gardening, tidying up outside. Then we make our own pizzas and put it in our pizza making oven, which is outside, and we have a chat, give advice, connect, get to know each other.
Have a laugh.
Yeah.
Stuart has put on that Accrington and Morecambe have a coffee and connect groups, and they are advertised. I believe they're really well supported as well.
Right,
Feeding the homeless and all on Wednesdays, Kim.
Sorry, Jay, I wasn't told about that one. So if you want to tell us about that, please.
Yeah, so Preston Community Disability Centre does pass McDonald's in the city centre every Wednesday. From 7, we get there at about 7 o'clock, and we give obviously try to give warm food out to the people who are still suffering and the homeless on the streets. So that's every Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Fab, thank you for that. We obviously we do have things coming up with like fundraisers or other stuff that we do and stuff like that. We've done quite a few car washes. There was meant to be another one this month, but we've cancelled that because we're going to arrange something else more around near Halloween. So if you just keep a look at our Facebook page and everything, they'll all be promoted on there.
Yum. Any more comments, Barbara?
No, that's it for now.
So
Okay.
are we happy to move on to the next live story?
Yeah.
So as far as everyone's aware, this is Jason that was released and coming into the meeting. He is here to do his live story, and I've heard bits and bobs, and it's a privilege to know him. And basically, it's all about inspiration, and the guy actually inspires me to keep moving forward. And he's with me enough every day and rings me. So we'll take it over to you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Can you hear me? Am I all right? Yeah.
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 It feels weird doing a Zoom meeting. So first of all, I'll kick off by saying I do apologise if I offend anybody. You know, that's really important. I try to make amends today for the way that I am. So I do apologise for that. I get quite passionate, and you might not be able to understand me because of my Bolton accent, because it's what I do most of the time. Feels weird being on Zoom, and I've got sweaty palms, and I've just been praying and asking for guidance around it, and I'm passionate about my recovery and where I've been and what I've done. You know, kind of, everybody says, where do we kick off? You know, that's the question. And I don't think without understanding me and where I've been, you ain't going to get a message of my recovery, because that's the most important thing today, is how I stay clean and why I stay clean. So where do we all start? You know, I hate this. Family, man. You know, I listen to lads and they talk about the families and what they were doing when they were kids, and I didn't have any of that when I was a kid, really. I kind of struggle around that stuff, and that's one thing about my recovery. I've always struggled about how I feel as an individual. My childhood was really chaotic, unfortunately. You know, my dad was in the army, my mum was an addict, and things were really bad. I just remember having nothing at Christmas, and my dad just kind of, I'm sorry about the domestic violence that I'm going to go on about, you know, because it's the reality of it. It's what led me into my addiction. And unfortunately, that's what my dad was like. Yes, I was a really kind of angry and selfish man, and never showed me any love or any understanding, or never was proud of me, or my mum, I never got any of that. Do you know, I just remember as a kid, as my dad using all the stuff and me, I'm sorry to say, I don't know why I'm going to apologise, because this is me and this is my life story. I'm just going to get it out there and show you what it's about. Do you know, I just remember my dad using all the money when we got the benefits of the week, and him getting drunk, you know. I mean, mum being off her head, and I'd go out burgling houses at 5 and 6 year old with my brother, and I didn't go out to burgle houses just because I was looking after money and stuff. I actually went out there to burgle to be fed. Do you know, one of my first burgles was a Jambutti, and I was always called the Jambutti kid as a kid, because that's all I ever did, would just go around asking for Jambuttis, you know, because that food was never there, and I always felt hungry and never a part of. Even with my siblings, you know, I kind of felt the responsibility that somebody had to pick that mess up, and I did do. So the chaotic lifestyle, and being from Bolton and being on bad estates at Bolton, which are the worst ones in the 80s and 70s, it kind of was always moving around, because I was always causing trouble. I was always robbing or being an idiot or never going to school. Do you know, when did I go to school? Do you know, everybody has a school, and they went to nursery. I didn't do that. I didn't understand any of that. Do you know, I remember a 9-year-old boy first day at school, and teacher saying, spell your name. I thought she was joking. I thought she was actually joking. I was 9 before I learned to spell my own name. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't even know what a J looked like at that age. I didn't even know what even I was. I just remember being dead angry and being dead frustrated. But by the time then, there's a lot of stuff before this. There's a lot of heartache and pain, and you know, I hope my mum doesn't get to see this, because it's about honesty. You know, my dad, when I was a young lad, you know, my dad got out of my life because he tried to kill me, my dad. And he left me life. And many a years on, I've still not seen him. So that led us to being in services and a part of, and that's when services become a massive part of my life, and I've been into to some degree. So yeah, kind of nana and family, and trying to feel love and trying to go to school, and I never did. If I went to school, I'd just take the mick out of you. Setting fireworks off or peeing in the kettle with teachers if they asked me to make them a brew, or pulling girls' hair, or sticking bubbly in their hair, or drawing on the blackboard, or just doing crazy stuff. As mad as a box of jumping frogs. I suffered with ADHD at that age, and never really felt like I fitted in anywhere, never felt a part of my family. And I always felt a part of being on the streets, So it's kind of the substances. I remember moving onto an estate called Mancroft back in Bolton back in the days, back in the 80s. And it was the worst of the worst. All the families that they couldn't handle, they'd stick on this estate and they'd put cameras up. And I remember looking out the back window one day, and I remember seeing lads with glue bags and cans of gas. And so I never had an inspiration of I want to be a doctor or I want to be a dentist or any of that. Mine was kind of, oh, that is interesting. Why are they having a laugh? What are they doing? What are they using, So that's what I did. So when they'd finished with the glue, I'd run out with the glue bags and start sniffing it and seeing what it'd do to me. And I liked it. I found something what would take me away from all that crap and all that stuff and all that heartache and pain and misery and this and what I felt inside. Because in me active addiction, that's all I've ever felt. So yeah, my substance misuse. So once again, it was moving about, being an addict, glue sniffing at 8 and 9 year olds, smoking weed, going to school, selling buds at kids, you know what I mean? Doing crazy stuff, nicking motorbikes, nicking cars. And that's where I felt. That's where I found my first home. That's where I felt. I didn't feel home at home. I felt home with the boys living on the streets, and going grafting every night and burgling gas and doing whatever they've got to do. I'm sorry to say, but it's the way that I was brought up. Do you know when people go on about the love and they go on about Christmas dinners and this, that, and the other? I don't understand any of that because I never had any of that. Do you know when they go on about birthday parties and having cakes, and I didn't have any of that. I think I was like 32 years old when I first had my birthday cake. Do you know what I mean? So it just told you you're dysfunctional. So we come after time and we come at school and we're leaving school. It's kind of, what's your inspiration then? What do you want to do? Do you want to go to college? Do you want a life? Do you want a job? No, the way I want to be a criminal. That's the life that I chose to be. At 16 year old, when everybody says, what were you doing at 16 year old? My 16th birthday, I spent in prison. I got locked up Christmas Day and ended up getting a few month prison sentence on my 16th birthday. And it was like a badge of honour. It was like I was accepted to be a part of the boys. It was like, because in my family, it felt like I was loved. It felt like I was wanted, and I had that initiation and I had that badge, that I've done a bit of jail. So when you get out, because of respect and you've not done your grassing or whatever, I kind of started selling drugs, and that's where my drugs come in again. That's where class is. At 16, 17 year old, unfortunately, I started being addicted. So I went and crack cocaine at that age. That was in the 90s, so I stopped with the gas, and drugs have always been a part of my life. From school, I was always smoking cannabis and smoking buckets in the brook with the lads and getting off our heads every night, though. But when they were going home, like Paul said before, I was always looking for that next high or that next buzz, or so if I couldn't find it in the drugs, then I'd be out there grafting, because that gave me what I was missing, and I was always angry. As a kid, I always remember being angry and being frustrated and never understanding why I am like I am, and thinking I was lost, and why do people have families, and why is mine dysfunctional? So come to me, okay? 16 and 20s were like that. Jails, man. What can I say? What can I say? You live in that kind of lifestyle, and eventually you're going to get your colour felt, and I did. I did a lot of jail before I was 20, and I quite a lot, actually. And in jail, I'm not going to say, I didn't, like my 16th birthday, I was in jail, my 18th birthday, I was in jail, my 25th birthday, all the big stuff, I was in jail, I didn't go to school. So I kind of, I'm not going to say, sometimes I enjoyed it. I was glad to be away and that I was safe. but I just always knew that there was something different with inside of me and that I felt different. So I remember years and years ago, I think it was like 99, and I was locked up, and I remember somebody saying to me, you know, you have an issue and maybe you're an addict to substance misuse, and I never really understood that. I never. And then I went to an institution, and obviously I was in a dorm with a few lads and started to, and that's where I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous. I don't want to offend anybody by saying that. So that gave me a kind of an understanding that, yeah, there's a way out. There's a way out of there. I was feeling if I was willing to put the work in and work on myself, then I could get clean and I could stay clean. And I always kept that in my heart, knowing that that's what I wanted to do. You know, I'm going to come on to the next part of my life because it kind of it's made me who I am today. You know, before it's hard to. So when I come out of that prison sentence, you know, I went back in, obviously, but I knew that I was an addict, and I was grateful for that. Somebody planted the seed when I was in jail to say you're an addict. So when I got out, I kind of tried to figure out, well, how can I get the support around it and rehabs and that's what I do. Detox centres, numerous, living on the streets, you know, doing all that stuff. Then we all have them defining moments in our recovery, and you know, one of my defining moments, unfortunately, you know, I was actually kidnapped, and you know, I was tortured for quite a while and beaten out and my arm done and all that. And I remember when I was walking to the hospital and I was in intensive care and stuff, I remember crying and wanting to live and wanting to be normal. Do you know, I said to my mum the other day, all I ever wanted in my recovery was to be me, and to be me is to be Jason. Because I always felt lost and didn't feel, I just felt so lost inside. And I think everybody who's been in active addiction understands that. There's kind of no words that they can describe that sort of stuff. There isn't. I don't believe there isn't. And I'm passionate around my recovery. And so, yeah, when I did that, obviously I went back into jail. And when I went into jail on that sentence, that time, I got my head down. Do you know, like Paul said, do you know what I did? I asked for one of the biggest things I've ever done in my life. I asked for help. Do you know, I asked for help. Quite simple. I know it sounds simple, and it is, but doing it is totally opposite to what I'm used to. So I went in and went, listen, I need help. I can't walk. I've got to learn how to walk again. I can't use my hand because I've had it chopped off. Do you know what I mean? So what am I going to do? Couldn't see out of my eye because I had that too. There was loads of stuff where I had to think, how can I change the way that I am as a person? How can I stop affecting my family and everybody around me? Because I don't want to work some, but I don't know any different. I just didn't understand. I didn't know how to feel loved. I didn't know how to love myself, and that's the important thing. You know, so on that journey, on that institution, I got that support. You know, and a lovely thing happened when I got out of jail. I went to an institute, I went to another place, and I spent 2 years in treatment, you know, getting to know me as a person and working on that personal stuff. I went to NA because no matter what I've done, you know, I've been into institutions, I've tried all the other shit, and unfortunately it just didn't work for me. It just didn't work. I never felt a part of, and that place does. It makes me feel a part of. It makes me. It gives me a sense of belonging, and I've always wanted that. And I didn't have it on the landings. No, so in years, yeah. What did recovery give me? What did it bring to the table when I got clean? And what it gave me? It gave me me. Once again, I got Jason back after all that time of all that chaotic and mess. I ended up with me in treatment, looking at self, looking at step work, and understanding why I do the things I do. Do you know, on the back end of that, what does God give you when you... Because I have a faith around that, do you know, because I believe that most of us here, but there's kind of some defined, whatever you want to call it, at the back end of this, what makes us survive. So obviously I went into treatment and I got out and I got the car. I got a car. I got a driving test and I got a bank card. No shit. And he ended up paying my bills and I got a bank card and he had money in my pocket. And the most beautiful gift that I was given on that recovery was, I have my kids. I'm looking at your camera now because I understand, because it's in my heart and I believe that, do you know what I mean? And the most beautiful gift was my kids. Do you know, I'm a missus, and that's all I've ever wanted to do is have a sense of belonging and a sense of me and a sense of life and a sense of self. And I didn't get that, and I had it. Do you know, after time of working in services and doing whatever I'm doing, and in detoxes and in treatment centres and challenging people's behaviours around this sort of stuff. And that's what I did for many years, and going to NA every day and day in and day out. Do you know, and I love my recovery. But do you know where that left me at the end of it? Do you know where it left me? I didn't ask for that out that I asked for initially. I forgot to start sponsoring people. I forgot the faith and the belief of what brought me around to my recovery. I got angry with society again. I got angry with me again. And I got angry that I couldn't make a difference. And I still didn't feel okay because I wasn't honest with me. You know, so where did that leave me? It left me 13 years of recovery and using again. And after 13 years in recovery, then getting another 10-year prison sentence, I think it gives you some shit to think about. Do you know what I'm saying it? Because it's honest, if you was in an NA meeting now and you was with everybody, this is what I would do. And I'd be flaying my hands and I'd be pointing out to you because it's passion, mate. It's what's in here. It isn't about what's out there. Do you know, as you can see me hands, I'm not bothered about that. I'm bothered about me as a person. Do you know, so after getting that prison sentence, where did it leave me? Do you know, I tried to kill myself in jail. Do you know, and I've never told anybody that before, ever. Except my family know that. And do you know why? Because it's about being honest. You know, so that's where it left me, and it left me in the gutter. And before we went to jail, what happened to me? What was I doing before I went to jail? I was living on the streets. I lost my car. I lost my job. I lost the money. I lost the respect and love of my family. I lost the love of my missus, which is my ex, you know, and I owe an immense for that. And my kids, I affected my kids with my active addiction, and they see the dad living on the fucking streets. And I'm sorry for swearing again. You know, they seen the dad living on the streets at Christmas time when it's raining, middle of December, and then having McDonald's thrown at my head because it's 2 o'clock in the morning and beat up in a bus shelter. And all I ever wanted to do was just die. I just wanted to die, and I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget it. And I remember asking for help, and I just didn't get it. Because I burnt all my bridges before that, and I took the mick out of everybody, and my selfish and self-centered behaviour and my addiction wouldn't allow me. Do you know, so it took me back out there. It took me back on the streets, living on the streets, do you know, not washing for days, just not believing in anybody, not having Christmases, not spending time with the family, not feeling loved again. That degradation, you can't feel that. And you can't express it, and you can't tell it. You feel it. I struggle around it because it meant so much. And, you know, I was in Bolton one day, and I remember sleeping in Morrison's car, in the car park where they put the trolleys. And, you know, the guy come over to me, and, you know, another day again where I'm on my ass, I'm crying. I haven't had a graft that night because I've got DVTs in my legs, so I couldn't walk. And I'm praying to God and asking him, will I drop a bag outside of my floor? Will I drop a bag on the floor? Do you know what I mean? Or will somebody drop 20 quid to me so I can go and score? And it didn't. Do you know? And I just remember feeling that, why have I come all this way, and why have I had all that recovery and everything that I've ever done, and feel the way that I feel. And do you know, and unfortunately through that DVT, do you know, one of them defining moments again is that I ended up in intensive care, do you know, because I had blood clots on my lung, and I was working on the side, and a couple of things happened with my lungs, and I ended up filling my own body up with my own shit and piss because I'd split my lung. So then I ended up with septicemia and all that, and fighting for my life for months in hospitals. And all I can remember is being in the ICU unit and knowing my mum, and I remember being asleep one day, and I had an out-of-body experience, and I remember telling a few guys at the church the other week of what it was, do you know, and that keeps me a part of my recovery today. And yeah, see my kids and everybody else, and they were stood at my funeral, and it hurt. So that's where we ended up before I was in jail. That's where it took me. Eventually, do you know, I got that prison sentence and felt safe again. Do you know, I ain't going to knock that place. I ain't going to knock places like that because they've saved my life when I really needed it, really have. What did it do to me while I was in there? Obviously, I got to know my mental health, and obviously I come up with a few mental health issues, and I have medication because of that now. You know, when I was in there, though, you know, I stayed clean. That was the most important thing, is that I weren't running around the landings, and and chasing shit. I weren't chasing spice, and I was just trying to stay clean because I knew what I wanted. I knew what he had before, and I knew I could get there. But once again, I couldn't do it myself. I knew that I needed people about that. I needed people out there in services and who would support me. And this is where the help comes in again. So I started asking for that when I was in jails and got the support. So yeah, I got out, you know, after doing a 10-year sentence and being locked up. I don't think I've any gone emotionally. Do you know, there's one thing, once again, with another defining moment, you know, something happened to me when in jail and we don't really speak about it, and I think we should because it's really important to me. Do you know, when I was in there and I was finishing my sentence, my nephew was murdered in Bolton and was stabbed to death and was filmed and put online and put on Facebook, and that's why I don't have a part of that anymore. I don't have a part of Facebook and all that because it hurts. It hurts. I'm feeling my family and being in jail and not being able there for my brothers and my uncles and my mum and everybody else and not being there for the funeral, man. I cried. I just cried, and I just remember I just wanted to be out. I just wanted to be out and me again and clean. So that's what I set out to do. I set out to achieve that. You know, I got the help, and today I'm in a recovery homes with my telly. Can you see it, everybody? So obviously I'm in recovery, you know. What do I do for that today? What makes me love me and love my family? I struggle around the family stuff, but they're coming up next week, all 25 of them in 2 minibuses, because they're a big crew, you know, from Bolton, Watford down, you know, and that stuff I love, man. Do you know what is this place giving me, man? It's giving me a sense of me. Do you know what do I do? I knew that I needed to change my recovery. I knew when it just wasn't going to do. I knew it wasn't just going to fit in. You know, today I tried to follow a faith and we all go to church on a Tuesday, and you know, I love that. It gives me another level of understanding of why I'm here, because I believe that I can't go through all that shit and all that chaos and all that mess and not be here for some defined particular reason. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's about. I just know I need to believe and trust. Do you know, and that's what a faith is giving me. It's giving me a faith of believing in myself. And that's the most important thing, that everything I put my heart to is because I'm putting my heart to it, and I ain't just saying it. And that's what's important. You know, go out and feed the homeless, man, and then giving it back to the people that I feel love for, because I know what it feels like. Or some days you just want somebody to come home and say, "Are you all right? All right?" And I'm looking at you right now and I'm saying it. Are you all right? Do you know, that simple question? People get away from that. And all the other stuff. And I've been accessible. I love cars and motorbikes because I was good in them when I was a kid. Never really. And I'm to the. What do I want to achieve in my life? I haven't seen my little boy for 5 years because of my consequences of my using, because my ex won't let me, and I'm all right with that. I'm all right, because in time God will give me that. He will give me what I can achieve and what I feel, and I know when I get that, it's precious. God, man, it feels, you know. I have my daughter in my life, and I ring her all the time, and we have an honest and an understanding relationship, and I'm a dad. I have boundaries in place with my daughter, and that's another thing. We've got to have boundaries in place with self around our recovery, because I am in recovery. I'm a recovering addict. Do you know, so you ever do my NA meetings, and you ever do service, and you ever do step work, and you ever do have a faith and a belief, and I'm all right with that, because it's making me who I am. And do you know who I am? It's me, Jason, and Jason smiles. And everybody says that because I love that. I love being able to make people smile and me smile, because of where I come from and what I feel. Where people are struggling in the recovery, you know, we have beautiful service now. What is love doing for me, man? What is Red Rose doing for me? It's making me a part of. I'm a part of a community and giving back, and I'm not giving it because I want something off you. I don't want nothing off you. I'm doing it because I have a passion and a belief in my life, and I believe what I put my hand to I can achieve today with the right support and right people. If we go out there and we think we know it ourselves and we can do it, we can't. We can't. We're addicts. We take the piss out of everybody, and that's not nice. You know, so I get out and I support people and I help people, and I have true friends. I have friends, and probably my pal's watching me tonight. Do you know, and the kid's an inspiration to me, and I feel that love. Do you know, and I feel that that in my eyes. I feel that wet stuff, do you know what comes out sometimes? Because I'm in touch with that. And he ain't selfish and he ain't self-centered and he ain't ignorant. Today I try to live it by the principles of NA and the principle of having a faith in my recovery. And that's important. And without doing that stuff, I won't be here. I'll just be back out there and living on the streets, and I don't want that. No, we've just gone on about one of the best subjects in my life, and that's me. Kind of feel quite emotional, and I feel that, and I'm all right. I just want people to understand, you know, people do struggle, man. I mean, mental health, that's a massive thing. You know, years ago, none of that was talked about, and it is today. We can get support around that. You know, we go to the coffee shop on a Saturday because of that, to get together and not feel alone and not feel like you know, like you're not wanted. You know, there's no worse than being in a flat, and a lot of people do, and especially with this COVID stuff, I don't understand because I was locked up for that. But I understand it's had a massive effect on people's mental health and the drinking and the substance misuse. We've been behind the door for years, you know, like it's done with me. And, you know, people are coming out and asking for that help, ask for that help, get involved with your community. You don't even have to do anything. I think just even acknowledging that you do need some support is the start, you know, because that's where it all comes from initially. It isn't anybody out there or anything you've got or anything it's you. There's only you what knows you. So there's only you what knows what you can do about it, regardless of what people say to you, because you ain't going to listen. So I hope that I haven't sworn too much, you know, I think I'm going to give it up there. So I hope that I come across, and I want it to be passion, because that's what I believe in. So I hope somebody's got a part of that, and, you know, thank you for love, for making me a part of it, and making me feel loved, man, making me feel like, do you know what I love about it? Is that they'll give you a responsibility and tell you to crack on. They'll tell you to literally, come on, let's watch you fly, man. Let's watch you blossom. Let's watch you, you know, without being me and giving something back. And I love that. You're giving me the responsibility and a sense of self in my recovery again by just having that belief in me, because sometimes I still don't get me wrong. I am not perfect. I am not, believe me, I'm not. I do mess it up quite a lot, but as long as I'm still honest with myself and I get that support and I ask for people and I use the services and I talk openly and I am honest with me, I do all right. And that's what I'm doing. I'm doing all right because I want to, because I want my family and I want to feel loved again, and I want a part of what I've never had, because I take the mick out of it. So I hope somebody's got a part of this, and I hope somebody's got some out of it, and that's the most important thing. If it just touches one person in some way, shape or form, or makes them to get the support that they need, you know, you come along, you know, we all talk about what service we have, and there's loads of help out there. There's loads of stuff you can get involved in and feel a part of, you know, and that's what's important. So I'm going to get going. I'm going to say thank you once again, and it's been a pleasure and an honour, and thank God, you know, why I'm here today. Thank you.
Absolutely amazing, Jay.
Wow.
Powerful story, that, mate. Absolutely powerful, mate. Do you know what? I've heard bits and bobs. When I've heard it, mate, I can understand that, how you can relate with me sometimes. And that's just like blowing my head, mate. Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Is there any comments for Jay Barbara?
Any comments? Wow, I don't know where to start. I want to film that and play it to everybody that ever phones up with a referral or a membership. That was just amazing, Jay. Amazing. Right, Stephen says, yes, Jay, he loves you. Kat says, you should be so proud of yourself and how far you've come. Stuart praises you to the hills. Jay, you absolutely smashed it, mate. Keep going, pal. You're a massive role model. And keep showing people visible recovery, which you do from the heart. You really show it. You've got loads of love from Michelle, Tina, and is it Robin? So I'm sure you know who they are. And Alan has put, Jay, you're a walking testimony in itself, and you're a true inspiration for people to get engaged and have a bit of what you have got, which is peace from addiction. Well done, mate, and just keep it going. I'm absolutely stunned. That is amazing. As I said, that should be played to every single person that is dreaming about getting into recovery. The passion is so much there, and the inspiration just pours out to you. I'm stunned.
Thank you, people, for your questions, and people who are sending love out there. You know, means a lot, man. You know, we can all take the mick out there and we can all do whatever, but it's what I'm doing for me today. Do you know, and as everybody gets, that's what's important to me. I'm not bothered about the cars and all them trappings. I'm bothered about me and what I do and my family. Do you know, and people around me, man, general society, we take enough. Sorry for banging up.
You're all right, dear. You're so honest and pure, and you keep saying sorry. You don't need to say sorry, because you're on here for a reason, to help and inspire other people. And you did do amazing. So stop saying thank you, because we need to thank you for what you've just done. So thank you.
It's a
People
hard
just
thing
love
to...
your honesty. They absolutely love your honesty, and it just pours out of you. It's amazing.
I don't believe there is. And if I'm honest in my recovery and I'm honest with my faith, then there's no other way. You know, he tells me to do what I'm doing, and I believe that's why I'm giving a voice.
Yeah, it's hard doing a life story, mate. So for you to come up with all of that, I'm going to be shocked if you don't break down tonight.
Mate, you should see how much I miss, because there's quite a lot of mess. But I'm trying, you know, I try, man.
You've done well, mate. You've done well. Is there anything else that we have to touch on, people?
No, I don't know. Is that it, Barbara? Have we got any more comments or anything?
No, just Michelle, Tina and Robin just send their love for your honesty, and you've done brilliantly sharing the story like that. And it's just the way that you passed it over. I think you've stunned people. It's just, that was amazing.
Do you know, and it gives you something to think about tonight, and that's it. Do you know, that's it.
Yeah.
I like giving people something to think about, because I do come across as a bit of a jack the lad when you're meeting me, and I'm all over sometimes, just me as I am. I'd like to smile today. I love smiling, because I never.
Show us that smile then.
I met you first on the walk, and it's you looked like you were determined to go, and it was hard, and you did the bits that you could, and that's all that we do what we can.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I think that's it this evening. I don't know what to say after that. I can't follow that.
I think that's the best thing to leave it on, I think, actually.
Yeah, it is.
Jay, that is amazing. I don't think anybody else needs anything. They're going to be thinking about that the whole night. Thank you so much for coming on and doing it. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Kim. And I wish everybody the best.
Thank you, Barbara.
Keep on with your recovery, and always shout for help when it's needed. There's always somebody there. Thank you, and good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.